This is the unit review part 2. So question 11 says find 7 5/10 on the number line below and label it T. So I'm going to look at my number line, and I know that 7 5/10 is going to be between 7 and 8. So I'm going to go to 7 and 8 on my number line, and I'm going to find right in the middle, because that's where 7/10 is, and I'm going to label that T. Now it says to find the opposite of 7 5/10 and label it M. Well, I know an opposite is taking a positive number and just making it a negative number. So 7 5/10 opposite is going to be negative 7 5/10. And it's the same thing. If it was negative 7 5/10, the opposite would be 7 5/10. So I'm going to go back to my 0. I know again that 7 5/10, even when it's negative, is going to be between negative 7 and negative 8. So I'm going to plot that point, and I'm going to label that one M. Now it says label point H. It's 2.5 more than point T. Well, there's point T. That's a half more, 1.5 more, 2.5 more. I'm going to label that point H. Then I'm going to go back and it says label point A. It's 9 less than T. Well, there's T, so I'm going to count 9 less. 1 less, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Keep in mind that when I did my jumps, it wasn't on the number because I started at 7.5, so I'd have to go 6.5, 5.5, 4.5, etc. until I reached negative 1.5. Number 15. Mr. Guccione invested some money in the stock market. He tracks his gains and losses using a computer program. Mr. Guccione receives a daily email that updates him on all of his transactions from the previous day. This morning, his email reads as follows. Good morning, Mr. Guccione. Yesterday's investment activity included a loss of $245, a gain of $60, and on the most recent stock, you purchased an earning of $216. Now log in and see your current balance. Write an integer to represent each gain and loss. So the first example is a loss of $245. Well, a loss is going to be a negative number, negative 245. 245 is an integer, doesn't have a fraction, it doesn't have a decimal, so that works. A gain of $60, a gain is going to be a positive 60, and then earned, meaning I'm getting $216. So 216. Now there were some corrections for numbers 16 to 20, but we'll work with the corrections. We're matching the property to the example. So the first one, I'm just changing the order that I do things. So I commute in this direction, then I commute in this direction, and that would be the commutative property. The next problem, 254 plus 0 is equal to 254. Well, when I add 0, I'm able to keep my identity because it doesn't change. It stays 254. So that's going to be the identity property, and it's actually the identity property of addition. Now 21 plus negative 21, well, I know that when I take a number and I find its negative number, those are inverses. So this is going to be the inverse property. Now for this one, I have 3 numbers, and if you remember, when I'm grouping different ones, I'm associating them together. So for 19 is going to be the associative property because I'm associating the 9 plus 2 first in here, and in this one, it's the 1 plus 2, even though all of the numbers are on both sides of the equal sign. And that would leave me with the last one, which is the 0 property, because any number times 0 equals 0. Now if you turn to the last page, you have another graph, or coordinate grid, and you have number 21, find the length of the line segment XW. So I'm going to go up to XW, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and that is my length. I'm going to label that too because I know that's going to help me, and I know that too is going to help me. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to find the length of the other sides because they're looking for the area, so I know I'm going to need the length of all my